It was a busy afternoon at a large international airport. Passengers moved quickly through the departure terminal, dragging suitcases behind them, while announcements echoed across the hall. Security officers watched the lines carefully, scanning each traveler as they approached the checkpoint. Most people passed through without any problems. Among the travelers that day was a man standing quietly in line. He didn't attract attention at first. He wore simple clothes, jeans, a jacket, and a pair of dark athletic shoes. A small backpack hung over his shoulder as he waited for his turn to step toward the security scanner. To anyone else, he looked completely normal, but airport officers are trained to notice the smallest details. As the line moved forward, the man finally reached the front of the checkpoint. He placed his backpack inside a plastic tray and pushed it onto the X-ray belt before walking toward the metal detector. That's when one officer noticed something unusual. The man's shoes looked oddly bulky. At first glance, it might not have meant anything. Some travelers simply wear heavy shoes during long trips. But when the man stepped through the detector, his movement caught the officer's attention again. His steps looked stiff, careful, almost controlled. Instead of walking naturally, he seemed to be placing each foot down with unusual caution. The officer kept watching. The man passed the scanner and calmly reached for his bag on the other side. But his shoes still didn't look right, and sometimes the smallest detail can reveal the biggest secret. The officer stepped forward. "Sir, could you wait here for a moment?" What happened next would expose a smuggling attempt hidden in the last place anyone expected. The man stopped beside the inspection table as another officer approached. At first, the request seemed routine. Secondary checks happen often at busy airports, and most passengers cooperate without any concern. But this time, the officers were paying close attention. One officer gestured toward the man's shoes. "Sir, we're going to take a closer look at those." For a brief moment, the man hesitated. Then he nodded and slowly bent down to remove them. As the shoes were placed on the inspection table, the reason for the officer's suspicion became clearer. They were unusually heavy, heavier than normal athletic shoes should be. The officer picked one up and turned it over in his hands. The design looked ordinary from the outside, but the sole appeared thicker than usual. Another officer joined him, carefully examining the stitching around the bottom of the shoe. Something didn't look factory-made. The edges of the sole had been resealed. That was enough to justify a deeper inspection. The officers moved the shoes to a small examination area and used a handheld scanner to check inside the soles. The device immediately detected dense material hidden within. Now the situation had changed. What started as a routine security check was quickly turning into a smuggling investigation. One officer carefully began cutting along the edge of the shoe's sole. The room grew quiet as the blade slowly separated the rubber layer. Within seconds, a hidden compartment became visible. Inside the hollow space were tightly wrapped packages sealed in plastic. The officers exchanged a quick look. They had seen this method before, but it was still surprising to see how carefully the shoes had been modified. One by one, the packages were removed and placed on the inspection table. The contents would soon confirm exactly what the man had been trying to smuggle through airport security. Inside the plastic-wrapped packages was a fine white powder. The officers didn't need long to suspect what it might be. A small field test kit was brought to the table, and one officer carefully opened a portion of the substance for testing. Within moments, the result was clear. The packages contained cocaine. Several bundles had been hidden inside the soles of the shoes, carefully sealed to avoid detection. From the outside, the footwear looked completely ordinary, but inside, they had been modified into secret compartments designed for smuggling illegal drugs. The man stood silently as the officers continued removing the remaining packages. Each one was placed neatly on the inspection table. What had seemed like an ordinary pair of shoes had been turned into a sophisticated hiding place. Drug smugglers often attempt methods like this when crossing international borders. Shoes, luggage linings, clothing, and electronic devices are sometimes modified to create hidden compartments. But airport security officers are trained to recognize unusual patterns. In this case, it wasn't a scanner that raised the first alarm. It was behavior. The man's careful steps, the stiffness in his movement. And the unusual weight of his shoes, those small details were enough to expose the entire plan. The passenger was immediately detained by airport authorities, while the confiscated packages were documented as evidence. What began as a routine security check had uncovered a smuggling attempt that could have easily gone unnoticed. But once again, a trained officer's attention to the smallest detail prevented illegal drugs from passing through the airport. Sometimes the biggest secrets are hidden in the most ordinary places, even inside a pair of shoes.